Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode. Diversity is the game changer. And today I'm very honest from very still dark, uh, refresh environment here in Norway. Quite early, but already very exciting morning for me. At least people who knows me that I'm actually not very morning person, but I'm so privileged to be able to start day with that reason when people like my guest today can show up, can meet, can find the time in their very busy schedule. So I'm so privileged and grateful. So that's why welcome my special guest today. And the title, I will start with the title and then people start, audience start understand why it's titled like this. So I call it Mastering Executive Transitions, the Coaching Edge by Navid Nazemian, right? Did
That's
I
correct.
pronounce
Yes.
correct? Yes. Amazing. So today we are diving into the power of executive coaching and leadership transformation. And I'm honored to welcome Navid, an executive coach, best-selling author, and global leadership expert. With over 26 years of experience, Navid has helped countless leaders overcome challenges, build thriving cultures, and develop game-changing leadership strategies. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Valeria. I have been looking forward to this conversation and I'm stoked to be part of your show as well.
Yes, adorable morning. So, I have a little tradition. So, before we uh, actually have the opportunity to meet here now, today, have this knowledge conversations, one day we were like, uh, open without that many barriers, probably, but already with some dreams, imaginations. It's our very early ages. So, I would like to I would like you to welcome us to the uh, little land or childhood of little Navid. How was this guy? Who was his soul and the dreams and imaginations or maybe some special hobbies? So could you please share a little bit about little Navid?
Sure, sure. So, gosh, this is going a lot way back in time. So, I remember I had a great childhood. I had great parents, caring, loving parents. And I think one of the biggest joys that I had as a young child growing up was the fact that we lived with our grandparents in the same building. As in, our apartment was on the third floor and their apartment was on the fourth floor. And
Uh-huh.
that was one of the greatest joys of my life, to be able to go and see and play with my grandparents anytime I wished. And in a bit, I regret the fact that our son is not able to have the same kind of
Mm.
access to his grandparents. But that was my childhood, and it was a a very positive, a very good childhood. And yeah, it all started to kind of be affected by the war that started between Iran and Iraq at the time. And so
Mhm.
how old was I when the war started? I think I must have been seven, so 7 years old.
Mhm.
And that was something that I had obviously not experienced before. And it's something I do not wish for anyone to experience in their lifetime. It was really traumatic. So, because, if you don't know if there is a tomorrow for you and for your parents and for the rest of the family, that's really an unearthing kind of thing to come to grips with. But yeah, so I lived for 6 years. The war lasted for 8 years. I lived for 6 years through the war with my family, and towards the end of the 6 year of war, my parents decided that nobody knew how long the war is going to last. So
Mhm.
they decided that it's probably better to get me out of the country. So they, sent me to Germany, where I had some family living and working. And so they joined me a year later. And that's why I spent most of my life actually growing up in Germany and not in Iran, which is my original home country.
Mhm. Okay. I didn't know that, but I can. very much relate to this situation because I'm Ukrainian, and you know what's happening actually in so many countries now, so unstable political situation, but particularly in my country, it's still war. And 24th of February, it was already third year of full, somebody call it operation, but it's war. And especially for me, because I'm from Kherson, it's the city which is close to the Crimea. It's the city where, like, it everything starts. And I remember 3 years ago, it was so clearly, it was winter holiday. We went to Cyprus with my kids, and my mom, she called me like 5 in the morning, and she was, yeah, out in shock and screaming like, Valeria, the war came, and they are bombing us and everything. I still remember this call because, like you said, you can never imagine that. You could hear, because some stories about war I could hear from my grandparents, right? Because I made in Soviet, and every single summer I was at my grandparents' place, but it was like far, far away. I never could even imagine that we can experience that. So I really thankful that you could share this story, and I really join you in this very deep wish that nobody should experience that, especially kids, especially nobody, of course, but I mean particularly kids, because it's so traumatic experience, right, for the rest of the life. So yeah, so I understood. So it was challenging time, but probably also this time gave you a lot of resilience, a lot of special skills which you could actually bring and transform into the superpower later. I assume it's how I try now to approach this war and everything. Could you share us then a little bit more how how your young ages, how your life further developed? Yeah.
Sure, sure. So first thing is the decision to send me to Germany was a sudden one because also at the time the government in Iran decided, because they were running out of troops for the war, they decided that if you're a boy and you're 14 years or older, you're not allowed to leave the country. And it
Mm-hmm.
was a few weeks before my 14th birthday would come up. So I
Mm-hmm.
remember that day vividly, coming home from school, and there was this, deep kind of feeling in the air, and I sensed that as a child. So my immediate reaction was that someone died, because that's how I felt. Like I just got home, and there was no happiness, there was no cheer, as I normally would experience that. And then my parents turned around and said, no, but if you have decided that we want to, send you to Germany. And I said, what do you mean you? Like you're not coming? And they said, no, we can't. At the time, it wasn't possible for the whole family to move out.
Mm-hmm.
So it was tough. It was tough. And the first 2 to 3 years were really tough in Germany for me as well. But as you say, Valeria, I mean, you start to pick up those um, experiences, those embodied experiences, and turn them into something positive, because that's just the nature of who I am. So I remember when I came to Germany, I was sat at the gymnasium in the seventh grade.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I didn't speak a single word of German,
Mm-hmm.
and we had our French teacher, teaching us French and explaining that to German. None of those two languages I even spoke. So it was a bizarre moment and situation. But 3 years into Germany, so in the year 89, if someone had phoned me up back then, there was no internet. So if someone had called me on the phone, they wouldn't be able to tell whether I'm a German or a foreigner. So that's how I kind of, moved my way up into the culture, into the language.
Mm-hmm.
3 years into my tenure in Germany, I was the very best at my school, which my teacher actually spoke to some organization, and they were funding me as a bright student already at a very young age, at the age of 16. So, and that continued into my student time. And yes, I graduated with distinction, and yeah, went to my dream company called Adidas, and the rest is history, as we say.
Oh my God. Amazing story. It's again like, yes, so motivational and inspirational for people who can hear us, our show, that yes, even through adversity, we can turn that into creative fuel, right? And it can, what can we do? Sometimes the circumstances that not what we can impact, what we can change, but how we can approach them, we can really make a conscious choice. And the best of it, it's true, it just to build the strengths and transform it to, yeah, like you said, even to something positive, because otherwise sometimes really we should to actually put mask on ourselves and then on others, right? If we can't help ourselves and to do something, then there is not much help we can give to the situation, or even to special people who is close, and we are responsible about these people, right? So
Yeah,
I'm very
would like
happy
to
you.
just build on what you just said, which is very important, which is, we can have two reactions to adversity and drama coming our way, right?
Hmm.
One is like, oh, it's like a downward spiral. I call it the downward spiral. It's like, oh, the world is so unfair, unjust. I'm just unlucky. How
Hmm.
could this could happen to me? How am I, and so you kind of you go down the spiral, and at the end of it you are victimizing yourself, you are traumatized, you are all sorts of different things. And then the other end to this is kind of the upward spiral, which is okay, and this is what I do with my coaching clients, by the way.
Hmm.
um, when they go through a career transition, so when they move from one critical position into another one.
Hmm.
And so I have failed twice when I made those career transitions.
Hmm.
And of course, it's never pleasant. It's never nice in the moment, as and when this is happening to you. But it would be an absolute shame if all that this failure is leaving behind is just the scar wound on your face, and that's what you just accept and you kind of move on. But what I really say to my executive leaders is that these are the golden nuggets of learning opportunities that we may not appreciate at the time they are happening to us, but we will be able to draw strength and resilience and all sorts of different things from them as and when we move through them, and certainly at a later stage. So, trust your struggle is one of the slides that I have when I present at conferences. And that really is capturing the moment of failure, of disappointment, of whatever the word is that comes up for you. But the reality is, you're much more able and capable to learn from our mistakes than from our successes. It's easy to assume if I'm having a great success as a CEO, that it's down to my competent leadership, it's down to my good qualities. And it may or may not be true, but it's a lot more valuable to learn from our mistakes, because those are embodied experiences that we can learn from, reflect upon. And as and when we go through another career transition in the future, we
Hmm.
have this embodied experience of what went wrong the first time or the second time. So that's really one of the things that I wanted to share when you said you can also learn from it and be more resilient and so on. So draw strength from a failure rather than kind of victimize yourself and kind of go down the spiral.
Yes, I immensely appreciate, was very knowledgeable insight. It's the concept which I also call it. It's like to failure forward. Yeah, exactly. By doing failure, you can gain some knowledge, and to failure forward. It's true, because it's not possible. Nothing actually, even the nature. goes like that, it goes like that, right? And you should be also glorious when you take your failure. It's never a failure, it's always a lesson, right? But it takes time to understand, and it's sometimes easier to talk, but to start practicing it's also kind of challenge, right? Because we also emotional baggage we have and everything. It's also very different, right? And everything what's shaping us, like circumstances. So it's a lot of factors which actually is like a puzzle, right? That's brilliant, because then we already came to uh, uh, your expertise, your talents, and I would like to know. For me, it's very fascinated when I read all accolades you have, and it's like you're for me the greatest mind, right? And you can teach, and you have the most valuable currency and power is knowledge, right? And you can teach all those CEO, which I mean again, they're so diverse, and it's so diverse domains and industries. How actually it all has started? First of all, it should be like, for me, for the personal factor, you should believe that you can. Because for me, I don't know, it would be in the beginning a little bit scary. Why should I believe that I know what this person should do, right? And how exactly you came to the ideas that you have so solid baggage already. Can you tell us about this story? Because maybe you can inspire somebody. Maybe some people they want, but they kind of even can't dare that. Because right, I just could read your portfolio. Oh my God, all these companies. I would like it's really, oh, it should be so much self confidence in the first place. Yes,
Yes.
can you tell us about your story?
Sure, sure. So first off, allow me by saying that 3 years ago, I didn't have any of these accolades or awards, right? And this is important to note. If I wanted to build up my business based on this, I wouldn't have anything to build on. Just only 3 years ago. So it's one of the key learnings that I want to share with the listeners and the viewers is that, if you don't have those accolades right now, do not worry, because they will eventually come your way. And so, the funny example I use is Valeria. I spent 20 years, after 26 years, working for the people function, for the HR function, human resources. And it was a conscious choice. And at the time, in the year 2002, nobody wanted to give me a chance to work in HR because I had no prior work experience in HR. I had worked in sales for 6 years for
Mm-hmm.
two amazing companies. I was a great salesperson.
Mm-hmm.
And sales, I appreciate that about the function, is one of the most transparent functions. You know exactly how good you are compared to your peers, and you can compare yourself at the national level and so on. So I was pretty good at sales, but I had this desire to want to move to the human resources function. And at the time, in the year 2002 in Germany, nobody wanted to hire me in HR because it was very black and white. I mean, some of those companies that I sent my application to were kind enough to call me up and say, "Hey, I received your application. I think it looks amazing. I think you may have picked the wrong function. We have outstanding opportunities in sales for you. We'll be delighted to invite you for an interview." And I would be really angry and say, "No, I don't want to work in sales. That's the whole point. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
did not read my cover letter, because that's where I make the case as to why I want to move to the HR function, why I want to have more of a systemic impact than being the best salesperson out there and doing the thing." Anyway, as Eminem says in his favorite song, it takes one person, one opportunity, and the name of the lady is Dania Frech, who gave me a chance at the time. And she said, "Look, I'm not going to lie about this. You will be a very controversial hire, because everyone else, literally every single other person that's working in HR, has an HR background.
Mm-hmm.
So you will be the lowest level HR person we're going to hire into Adidas." My job title at the time was assistant HR manager.
Mm-hmm.
And but just so you know, if anyone attacked you for not being an HR person and so on, My line of defense to those people is Navid may not have an HR background, but he's the only HR person that's actually sold our products. And that's how I'm going to kind of, make it a case for why I went ahead and hired you. Now, anyway, it was a happy hire, and it all went up from there. But um, this is really important to say that, if you deeply believe in something, and if you really have a passion and desire for something, it may take a long time until someone else realizes that same passion and quality. So fast forward 20 years into this HR journey. It's the summer of 22. This is 3.5 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
or 3 years ago. I was crowned HR's most influential practitioner by the HR magazine. Now, that award came my
Mm-hmm.
way on the day I announced my departure from HR and corporate. Yeah.
Oh
So
my God.
it's, someone woke up and said, "Oh, actually, this guy is pretty decent. We might as well give him this award." So the reality is, it sometimes takes 20 years to
Yeah.
get to something that you maybe even deep inside feeling, "I deserve this." I mean, I worked in those 20 years, I worked for five of the world's most admired companies. And I worked at the country level, at the regional level, and at the global level. I lived and worked in five countries during those 20 years. And yet it took 20 years for someone else other than myself to come to realize that this guy and what he brings to the HR kind of discussion and to the people function is probably worth an award.
Mm-hmm.
And the same goes for my coaching accolades, right? I mean, I wish, Valeria, I was that strategic. 10 years ago, I would sit down in my kind of home office and start to deeply reflect after a session of meditation to say, I'm going to write a book. It's going to become a best-selling book internationally. And on that, that the year before I turn 50, I'm going to jump ship from the big corporate and set up my own coaching practice.
It
The
doesn't.
reality is,
Yeah.
it all just happened, right? And in the year 22, which is a critical year for me, I was about to turn 50. I had completed, 26 years with the corporate environment. And I had suddenly, because of the success of the book, I had suddenly all this excitement and interest that came my way. I had people like you reaching out to me to say, "Hey, I'm a podcast host. I would love to have you on my show." I had people reaching out to me to say, "Hey, I am the global talent director for this company. We're having our global leadership conference on this day. We would like to invite you to fly you in to come to speak to our top 100 leaders." And this is where I realized that, I had been coaching on the side for about 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
I've been writing on my book for 7 years. And that year where it all surfaced, I had to make a hard choice, which is, do I want to continue? I was happy in the corporate world. There was no drama coming my way.
Mm-hmm.
And I was highly appreciated. I was an expat in London with one of the largest companies in the world. And so they paid for the, housing, the schooling, and everything. Um, why risk all of that and do something that you aren't even sure if it's going to work out? The truth
Mm-hmm.
of the matter is, I had never set up my own business before. I had no idea if I'm any good as an entrepreneur or not. And so you have all these big question marks, floating around in your
Mm-hmm.
head. And I just went with my gut feel, and my gut told me that this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. On my vision board, I had this, quote that said, "If not now, when?"
Well. Mm-hmm.
I really took the opportunity, and I thought to myself, you know what? What is the worst thing that could happen to me?
Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
worst thing that could happen to me is I try this out for a year or two. It doesn't really work out. And I can come back to corporate. There's always a space and a place and a seat for me in the corporate world.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I never, touching wood, I never had to look back. I never had to even think about going back to corporate, because at the time when I jumped ship, I had been coaching for 7 years and I had an international best-selling book, which opened doors for me in ways I couldn't even possibly imagine. So my plea to all the listeners and viewers of your podcast is, if you are passionate about the one thing that you really believe is going to be a game changer to you and to your clients, just hang in there. And eventually the world is going to wake up and your clients are going to, rave about you, and this is where all this is like an echo chamber. All these other people will start to hear the noise, and eventually, as and when you have enough social proof, all these institutes and the awards and all the other good things are going to come your way. So that's just a long-winded answer to your question. How did you get to where you got to, and what was the journey like?
It's amazing how universe works sometimes, so marvelous, because today, this morning I started from meditation, and it was guided meditation. And then I took like cold shower, and I was listening motivational speech by Oprah. I love her motivational speeches, and it was like randomly, okay, what kind of subject I should listen to that. I listen them like thousands of times, but still every time I open something new because it's changed the situation. And it's a fantastic, because everything what you are appealing with your message to the audience, to listeners, it was exactly the subject I chose today, because she like said, please cultivate patience, right? It's amazing strength, and believe in the process, trust the process. And sometimes we don't understand, we are not patient enough, we want, or we don't want uh, to wait when we know what we want, but sometimes we even don't want what is there waiting for us, and we can be frustrated, but sometimes we are not prepared enough that for that door to be open for us. And it's exactly what you are saying, it can take 20 years. And all it kind of looks all of a sudden, but it's not. It's then, it's exactly the right time, like she explained now, not the second before, not the second after it should have happened. It's already there waiting for you, but you should build your path, and believe in yourself, trust the process. And yes, and there one day you should really find the courage to listen to your inner voice, to take risk. Yes, because we are all unique, and we came here to the universe to with our calling, right? And sometimes we need to pause and wait. Maybe it takes so many years, like even to get the skill later to use your talent, your passion, your calling. Because like 20 years, I'm sure you should have, like, developed that much tools and everything, that now you became prepared to actually to fulfill your calling, right? So it was
Yes,
so amazing, because I was like, now I really like practice and not interrupt it, but it was on my tongue. Can you imagine, it was exactly what I was listening now, like 10 minutes ago. So
yes.
it's yeah.
Universe sometimes works in interesting ways. So the other thing I wanted to add to what you just said is, look, when I decided that it's time for me to jump ship, I made an announcement on LinkedIn to my, at the time, 7,000 followers, to let them know that this is my decision and I am open for business.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the hashtags I use on my post is "the best is yet to come." And
Mm-hmm.
of course, I've had, for some people that was a surprise because they were not expecting me to step down. Some people were expecting me to become CHRO of the same or another organization. So why stop now? Just a level below where you could actually get to. And so when I had some calls, I had some Zoom calls, Teams calls with some of my colleagues and other people who know me, some of them were quite critical of this decision. So some of
Mm-hmm.
them were kind of, suggesting that although I use the hashtag "the best is yet to come,"
Mm-hmm.
say, "Oh, Navid, I can't wait until I see you back in the corporate world," which in a way is suggesting I expect you to fail and I expect you not to be successful, and or I don't think your talent is effectively used in this sort of a business, and I would love to see you back. So whether you frame it positively or less positively, and the reality is that same year, at the end of that year, I got my first two awards as a coach. Again, I had been a coach for 7 years. Nobody had said anything about my amazing coaching skills other than my happy clients. But
Mm-hmm.
at some point, someone, realized, oh, this guy is probably a capable coach. And so since then, for 3 years in a row, CEO Today has named me the #1 coach in the world. And each year I use the same hashtag, the best is yet to come. And some people just can't believe it. They can't believe it. Like, one of my very good friends, she's also a coach, told me, I can't even imagine what more can come your way. And I
Mm-hmm.
said, I have no idea. I just believe in that motto, which is the best is yet to come. And so that's just a quirky thing about me and my positive outlook of the world. And I'm not, having a pinky glasses and everything is perfect and so on. No. But if you sometimes believe in something inherently, that energy is going to attract a similar, if not the same energy, and make things happen for you that you didn't even dream about happening for you and to you.
Of course, because you see, it's um, with all our age and experience and our, you know, spiritual and personal growth, we understand more and more that the way focus goes, energy flows. And if you open enough and you're focusing on that all the factors, all the universe helps, but actually it's kind of natural. But because you start like really understanding how universe works, but because you've been again working so hard all those years, right, and put a lot of determination and everything. Because some people, they believe that, oh, it just, you can write, manifest, meditate, sit, do nothing, and then it should have happened. No, dreams don't work until you don't work, sorry. But you have to be clear, yes, about the way, or at least, if you don't know all the steps, couple of steps direction what you want, and then universe can start, like you said, opening the doors. Amazing. I would like to ask you about this beautiful book, which uh, you said it was 7 years you have used.
Yes, it's a little and not very well known secret. Again, Valeria, I admire those authors who, fly to Bali and 6 months later they come back with a full manuscript and they go to the publisher and get the book.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It just, I don't know about your life, but my life doesn't work like that. So
No.
I, in those 7 years, I actually thought of writing a book to be a year-long project. I mean, what's the big deal? I mean, I'm writing about the topic that I love. I feel pretty competent about the topic, and so it's not like I have to do a ton of research on the topic. And I'm a pretty ambitious guy, so if I set my mind, my energy, and my attention on anything, I will
Mm-hmm.
get it. It's not even a question
Yeah.
whether I will make it or not. So that's what I thought of it to be. What I clearly underestimated were certain things that just got in the way. So the first thing was, in those 7 years, I was performing in 3 roles in 3 countries in 2 companies, right? So
Mm-hmm.
in between all of that were moves. When I started writing the book, I was still in Switzerland, and then we moved to Germany. Shortly after that, our son was born. And so, and I was coaching on the side. So I have a full-time role, which is an executive role. It's more than a 9 to 5 type job.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I am on the plane all the time, flying to this country, sorting this crisis, managing that dilemma. And then I obviously have also a family and a life. And so the time I could give to the book was clearly a lot less than what I had hoped it would be. And not only that, for about 6 years, I had only produced 60 pages in those 6 years. So
Mm-hmm.
I really sat down and thought to myself, I don't have enough life left in me to finish this book, because, a good book usually has 240, 250 pages. So
Mm-hmm.
if you multiply that by 10 pages a year, that's like a 25-year journey. And I just couldn't imagine to do that. So 6 years in, I thought to myself, you know what? I might actually do something else. I thought maybe I have a book in me, but I
Mm-hmm.
may not. And so what I could do is I would just publish the 60 pages as a white paper and
Mm-hmm.
just be with it, just not have this burden. I had this
Yeah, yeah, that is him.
parts in my diary, book writing, book reading, book research, book this, book that. And I would just sit in front of my, laptop, and nothing would come to me. And so it was really a much harder journey than I ever imagined that to be. And I'm not suggesting, I'm not putting anyone off from writing their passion topic into a book. What I will say though is, and you may say, you're a coach who helps other people who struggle with certain topics, right? It only occurred to me after I spoke to another coach and an HR lady based in the US. She suddenly talked to me, and this is the way the universe works, right? She and
Mhm,
I were on a coaching call.
mhm,
I was organized by a coaching provider, and we connected on LinkedIn. And she said, "Hey, I love your background, your profile, and so on. Let's do." And this was during the pandemic. Let's do a Zoom call these days.
mhm.
And I said, "Sure." I sent her my diary link, and we connected. So this is our first one-on-one call ever. And so a bit of a, chit chat. And then she said, "I'm so excited. I wanted to talk to you about something I've done recently." And I think, "Oh, what is that?" And she said, "I've started writing a book." And I thought, oh my goodness, I'm going to keep it quiet,
Uh-huh, uh-huh,
not
uh-huh,
tell her that I have struggled for 6 years to write a
uh-huh.
book, because I don't want to,
Yeah.
tone down her enthusiasm. And I hope she's one of those that finishes the book in 6 months' time. Anyway, and she says, and this is what hooked me, not the fact that she wants to write a book, not the fact that she's working with someone helping her to write the book, but she said, and this guy, his name is Eric Costa, by the way. He's a professor at Georgetown University, and he's got like an online class that helps wannabe authors become published authors. It's like a Zoom thing. And she said, we've had 2 sessions so far with Eric. It's like a weekly cadence. So every week there's a session with him. But he seems to have the most incredible Rolodex of celebrities. We just had last week the CEO of Netflix coming live on a call and talking to us authors. And in 2 weeks' time, he's got Steve Wozniak, the number 2 employee of Apple, coming and speaking to us. And I think in 2 months' time, there is Simon Sinek lined up. I'm like, okay, hang on. Who is this guy again? Tell me a little more about his class. Anyway, so what happened is she obviously hooked me up with him. We spoke, we connected immediately. And during the next 6 months, not only did he help me to write another 180 pages to the 60 pages I had written, but he was really instrumental by providing a framework to me that I would write up against, which is something I was missing. It's like you're on a journey. Imagine, Valeria, you're on a journey and you got Google Maps with you, but you don't have a destination.
Mhm,
Any direction may be a good or may not be a good one to get you a little closer to the destination. That's what he did. He not only gave us a framework, but he also taught us how to take the right next step, not the next 3 steps, not 5 steps out, every step of the way. He was
mhm,
kind of guiding us through the process. And that's how I managed to do what I did. And again, it's like a good meal. Yes, you can buy something ready, put it in the microwave. It may actually taste even okay, but it's different than the meal that you have spent 14 hours in the kitchen
mhm,
meticulously preparing, putting the spices and watching so that it becomes the meal. And I claim today, I have no idea if that's true or not, that the fact that my book became a #1 new release on Amazon and is today an international bestseller is down to the fact that I struggled for 7 years to write this book. I took my time with the research, I took my time with everything, and then I had the framework and I could kind of finish it up. But I claim if I had, there are people who offer their services to you. They come and interview you for 4 hours, and then out of those 4 hours, they produce a book for you. I am entirely sure that none of those books become international bestsellers because they're just too shallow. They're
mhm.
just about this one person's experience. And quite frankly, I'm not Oprah or Barack Obama or Gordon Ramsay to have had such an exceptional, exciting life to draw lessons from and share with the world. So it's really been a journey, but it's been an incredible one.
Thank you for sharing. This is amazing story, and it's so inspiring for me because I'm in my long and loneliest project ever. It's writing PhD, and it's last half a year when I'm a very social creature, like taking exam, working with groups, have deadlines, like you said, have frameworks. It worked even during the wartime perfectly for me. But when it now this like free flow, free swimming in the ocean, I have just to organize myself, sit and write. Oh my God. It's yes. You're like me. I also admire these people, like you said, they can just decide, they can just fly and sit there and produce. It doesn't, for me, it's killing me. It's like sometimes when something really positive, energetic happens during the day, also it gives me more than energy to suddenly sit and write. But I cannot just sit and write. It will be like it's I need to draw it from myself. It's like even it's topic which I love, and I've interviewed so many people with diversity management. It's about cultural gender. Now it's about neurodiversity, and now it's actually a very special, passionate topic for me because I'm displaying neurodivergence myself. I have OCD, and now it's more and more okay uh, to to be open about that, right? Because but still we have a lot of stigma and prejudice and discrimination. For me, it's now really like topic I would like to advocate, not just because it's kind of trendy or but because this is very my story. And but sometimes it's true. So okay, it's not a book, but PhD, and it's kind of book. So I need this guy.
Ah, very
Oh,
happy to connect you to him. Last time I checked, he has done that for 2,500 people. So 2,500 people have attempted to write a book with him, and they have succeeded. So yeah, very
what's his
happy.
name again? You said?
Eric Costa. He's a
Uh-huh.
professor at Georgetown University,
Uh-huh.
and his program used to be called the Creator Institute. It's now renamed into Manuscript.
Okay. Amazing. You see? Wow. Thank you for sharing this very inspirational gem for me. um, Wait, time is flying. So interesting to talk to you. So, okay, I already jump over this question. Um, but from your book, I wrote I could learn a little bit. You wrote that. Would it surprise you to learn that 40% of executive transitions fail during the first 18 months, right? With more executive facing exponential challenges, a crisis is imminent, and consequence for organizations and executives alike are severe and far-reaching. So it was very interesting for me. I had no idea that it was so critical first 18 months. And if you could briefly say, I know we don't have that much time, but these 18 months, what are like the essential challenges actually? What caused that? And then also maybe briefly some tools how you take and lead them to maybe to fix, or maybe even not to avoid, not to get into.
Yes, yes, sure. So first off, when I read on and learned about the 40% number, I couldn't believe it. I thought maybe it's a typo, it's 4% or 14%. But the reality is it's 40%. And one of the most validated studies that point out the 40% failure rate is Heidrick & Struggles. They are
Mm-hmm.
one of the largest headhunters search firms in the world. And they have done this analysis over their own placements. So
Mm-hmm.
over a 10-year time period, they had placed over 20,000 executive leaders, of which 40% were not around anymore 18 months into the appointment. So there's something about the 12 to 24 month kind of into a new position at the executive level that
Mm-hmm.
can be a make or break kind of for the executive. Now, I won't bore you with the top 10 reasons for executive transition failure, which is a chapter in my book. But if I present the topic like I did yesterday at the Global CEO Summit in Baku, I use the aggregated reasons for failure. And the top 3 grouped reasons for failure are people, culture, and politics. So it's not the technical skills or the lack of technical skills that gets in the way. It's what we call in HR the soft skills. And so these are the top 3 reasons for failure. And then coming back to what you said, as in how do you support those executives? What kind of framework or tools do you draw upon? The first one I want to mention is, there is this other very popular book out there. It's called The First 90 Days. And it's been going very strong. I mean, it's sold over 2 million copies over the 21 years. And it sounds like appealing, right? I mean, who wouldn't want to be done with their onboarding after 90 days? I would love to do that. The reality is, if you're working at the executive level, it's unlikely that you will get anything done in the 90 days. And so this is why the framework that I describe in my book, the Double Diamond Framework of Executive Transitions, is a 12 plus months journey. Meaning, when I get to work with those CEOs and CFOs and CHROs, I always contract with them for a 12 months time period, because that's how long it takes for them to get to a successful outcome during the first year. So, the framework roughly consists of 7 phases, of which only one phase is the first 90 days. So I don't want to belittle the idea and the thinking that's gone into the first 90 days, but you see, if you got 7 phases that last 12 plus months, it's nowhere near sufficient to just focus on the first 90 days, but you have to do a few things. And the other thing I want to share about the framework, which is and often unknown with listeners and viewers, is the fact that the first 90 days is actually the second phase of the 7 phases in my framework. The first phase is called Discover, and that's your minus 90 to day 0. So again, it's beyond me, Valeria, why any executive need to sit on their hands and wait until day 1 to start to onboard themselves successfully. Oftentimes, executive appointments are announced far earlier than the actual start, right? And so there's this other gentleman who I know and appreciate. His name is Michael Burrows. He's an American guy. He used to be also a headhunter himself. And he wrote this other amazing book that is nowhere near as popular as the first 90 days. And his book is titled Before Onboarding, Critical Success Strategies for Onboard Yourself Before You Start in Your Role. And that's my phase 1, which is as soon as the announcement is made, as soon as you have signed your contract of employment or whatever it is that you need to legally comply with, you can start to do things to get yourself a head start. You don't have to wait and sit on your hands until day 1 to start to onboard you and induct yourself. So those are just 2 of the many tools and frameworks that I apply working with executive leaders that are going through a career transition. And of course, a lot of those are done in a coaching way, right? I mean, what we do as transition coaches is exactly that. We work with those leaders. I've done this now over 250 times over. So I've supported more than 250 executives when they go through a critical career transition. And of course, you learn along the way as well. And the last thing I want to say about this topic is the fact that I have never been a CEO myself. I've never been even a GM myself. And despite that, more than 50% of the clients that come to work with me are GMs and CEOs. And this is because they deeply appreciate the expertise that I've built up in this area, more than looking at my resume and thinking, he must be a great coach for my HRD. But when I want to select the next coach as a CEO, I'm looking for someone with a CEO background.
Wow, interesting. And then also, because I believe it's because you also have quite open and diverse perspective, you could see all on CEO and these positions from another perspective. It's actually diversity of mindset and mind and approach and perspective. And it's actually very nice now smoothly comes with a question, because podcast is diversity is game changer, and I would like to ask what are your reflections? What are your insights about the role and importance of diversity and inclusion in, of course, in especially in your domain now, and
Yes.
especially now you know what's happening in last month, particularly now in USA, and all this backlash and all this ridiculous nonsense. What's happening? What's are your thoughts and reflections now?
Well, I'm a big fan of data, and I let the data speak for itself. And I think if anyone is doubting whether diversity and inclusion initiatives are good or not good for the business, there's an excellent article from McKinsey that has done the number crunching and looked at it through various angles, and it comes to very concrete conclusions in the fact that if done right, not just for the sake of D&I, but for, properly, effectively done, diversity and inclusion can enhance the bottom line of a business. It can be increasing your revenue compared to your competitors. It can be increasing your profitability. It can be a factor in increasing satisfaction with the call center and customer agents that your customers are dealing with. So I think the case for DEI is proven. Now, onto my topic. When I was, before I published my book, I actually delayed the launch of my book because I got my hands on this study. It's a study from DDI, and the study is called Executive Transition Study. They do that every 2 to 3 years.
Mhm.
And in the year 21, I got my hands on this study. And the surprising fact was, Valeria, that female executives are at a disadvantage compared to the male executives when it comes to the support that they get from the company to transition more successfully. And that
Mm,
was a big question mark for me as to how can this be? And the percentages are 13, 19, and 22 percentage points,
mm,
meaning if you're a female executive and you get into the EXCO level, you
mm,
are 13 times less likely to receive leadership skills training that is targeted to your new role. You are 19% less likely to be getting a formal assessment and a debrief to know what you need to be focusing on. And you're 22% less likely to be assigned a formal mentor or a transition coach to help you support your upcoming career transition. And
wow.
so, whilst the study didn't really dig into the details as to why that is,
Mhm,
my humble intervention and suggestion for any leader and any organization is simply by making sure that these support interventions are tied to the level of leadership promotion. So
mhm,
let's say if you're in a corporation, as soon as someone hits vice president level and above, whether they are a man or woman or whatever the gender is they identify with, those kind of support mechanisms should be their entitlement and not a factor of negotiation, which is my reason for believing there is a delta between the male and the female execs. It's not that the company doesn't care about the female employees as much. It's
mhm,
because it's a negotiable item. And of course, male executives being male executives, they're much more demanding, forthcoming,
mhm.
expect those things to come their way than the female counterparts are maybe very decent, very
Mhm.
reasonable, and not
Um,
wanting to,
yeah, yeah. Mhm,
ask for anything on top because they're so happy about the promotion and the
mhm,
packaging anyway. And so that's kind of my last line to say about the topic of diversity, why it matters, and even in executive transitions, it's a topic that deserves attention and something that can be easily fixed with the intervention I just shared with you.
wow, it was very interesting. It was completely new insight for me because actually you kind of could read my thoughts when I read about this 40%. So the first question hit me. It was like, oh, it could be interesting to find out the data actually between spread between the gender, like
Yeah,
But now,
like that. There's no distinction there. There's no statistically significant difference between male execs failing and female execs failing. They fail at the same rate.
mm, I think, and if you could also just briefly add couple of words about neurodiversity. What are your thoughts in this topic about this topic? It's quite new, but I think it's so important to talk also more and more and to raise awareness that like biodiversity, to try to be healthy, we need all this biodiversity. That's why I mean we all deserve to be embraced and celebrated, and not discriminated because our brains wire differently. What are your opinions about that?
Yeah, look, I'm not claiming to be an expert in all these topics, and so I can't really say anything worthy to you and to your audience on that. The only thing I want to say is, when we came to Dubai, we were looking for the right international school for our son, and we are not neurodivergent, or we don't have any of those abilities. But one of the schools, when we were walking and visiting the school premises, they had a department for special abilities, and I thought that was a really nice way to call this out, and
Mhm.
not to say, oh, these are special needs kind of, children, but these are children with special abilities. And the way they dealt with those children was to integrate them into the classroom fully. And one of the things that they do, which I think is brilliant, is they actually give passports to every child. So they call them learning passports. And
Mhm.
if you're a neurodivergent child, you will have also items related to your special abilities and special needs. And so the fact that not only those have the passport, but every child has a passport, is one of the things that integrates them into the
Include.
school. And
Mm.
again, in the classroom, everyone has got their passport, everyone has got their learning needs and special abilities. So I thought that was a brilliant way to integrate that. And I don't think many organizations are actually that advanced in the thinking to A, know that this exists, and B, able to deal with it in the workplace. So that's just the small example I can share with you.
Yeah, it's a remarkable example. It's how we can deliver the message, and maybe it's by these small adjustments we can inspire other people. Maybe they can hear and say, "Oh, wow, brilliant idea! Why we can? Maybe it's the way we can proceed and follow perfectly." Last minutes we have, so my tradition always to play a little bit. We start from childhood, and I would like to uplift a little bit before the day. So it's a fairy tale, and everybody knows very easily which fairy tale this little beauty came from, right? We still need magic in our life. Data is cool, but magic also, we have to have magic to live through and try, right? So this is from which fairy tale? This one,
Aladdin's magic lamp, yeah.
course. But Aladdin, yes, and it's still fairy tale. So genie, he was very generous. It was about three wishes, but because I would like to put as many wishes from as many guests as possible, so it's just one. So my closing remarks and wish for today, to find out what your wish could be that I could put here. It can be small, big, for you, for audience, for just what is right now on your mind. What is?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I have to be a little careful what I wish for here, but
Mhm.
I, I certainly have been guilty, as some of my HR colleagues have been. But my wish would be to put humanity back into the human resources function. So to really be, putting that at the core of what HR people do. And I think sometimes, as I have done in the past, sometimes you don't get the balance right. HR is the function that is there to make sure the business interest is protected. At the same time, the employee rights and the employee well-being is maintained. And so I haven't always gotten that right. But if I had one magic wand, or the wish to make here, is that we put humanity back into the HR function.
I immensely appreciate your story, you being open, and it's very inspiring. Thank you for giving us time, first of all, and your knowledge, your brilliant knowledge. And I would like to thank our audience for staying with us. And I would like just to close our show actually from your post, which I like actually very much. Um, it's very nice, articulate, and very visual also, and it even for my sometimes girly brain, it's very cool. It's very like structured, like and I loved very much this post which you wrote about NASA. Yes, and the title, it's Embracing the NASA Mindset, Building Trust in Uncharted Territory. And I especially want to close our show with one of insights you put so brilliantly. Prioritize collaboration. NASA's success is built on the collaboration of diverse teams working towards a common goal. By breaking down silos and encouraging cross-functional collaboration, we can drive creativity and achieve extraordinary results. We must prioritize teamwork and leverage the unique strengths of each team member. Thank you. It was exactly what we are talking. It's about diversity, it's about collaboration, it's about our unique strengths, right? So every single person is unique voice, and we have to embrace it. Thank you so much. If you have any final thoughts for our audience, or you already had your brilliant wish, so then we can thank each other for being today, and I wish you all much success with all your projects, and it will be very exciting to follow your path, and I hope one day maybe we can meet in one conference and or do something together, like universe, you never know. Like you
Sure.
said, the yet what is your hashtag? You said maybe it will be very
The best
nice.
yet to come. The
Yes.
best yet to come. Yes, that's the hashtag. So thank you, Valeria, for doing everything you do. It's been an absolute pleasure and joy to be part of this conversation. It's different in that most of the other podcast hosts just want to deep dive into the book. So it was exciting for me to go back to the origin story and kind of work our way to today and dip a little bit out into the future. And yeah, just my offer to your listeners and viewers is that if they did want to connect with me, I'm very friendly. I'm on LinkedIn. I do my own LinkedIn account, so I don't have a virtual assistant or anyone doing that on my behalf. And I have a very large following and a very loyal audience. So the post you just read out is one of my weekly posts. It
Mhm.
also comes as a form of a newsletter. And so again, yeah, my invitation to your listeners and readers is to connect with me. And yeah, I look forward to hopefully meeting you in person one day.
Yes. Yes, and then I also can share that after downloading, you can always reach out to me, or you can ask how you can also follow Navid, but it will be also posted on Instagram, and our episode will be on YouTube and Spotify, and we will share that on LinkedIn, of course. So welcome to it was very great pleasure, just it's true, just to reach out to you. It was very nice experience, and so please people, yes, just sometimes people now just write and everything, and but sometimes you really should decide, oh, why not, we need to collaborate, and united we are stronger, that we should believe in ourselves, right? We should reach out to people. We like, why not? Okay, I like this guy, I write to him, I take a contact, right? And then the again, I forgot this hashtag, just yet the better yet to
The
come. No.
best is yet to come.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much, and much luck, and have a blissful day today.
Thank you so much. All the best. Take
Yes.
care.
All
Bye
the best.
bye.
Bye bye.